I am Dr. S. Prasannarani, Assistant Professor of Mathematics in Pingil Government College for Women, Warangal. Children, in the last few classes, in the last 4 classes, we have gone through some prerequisites that we need to learn the topic linear algebra. And we are left with 3 or 4 prerequisites to complete the total prerequisites that we'll need. So today we will complete all of them. And in the last class we have completed to learn what is echelon form, and I said a matrix which satisfies the 3 conditions is said to be in echelon form. And the first condition we have seen that all non-zero rows are above all zero rows. In a row which consists of all zero elements is called a zero row, and a row which consists of at least one non-zero element is called a non-zero row. So the first condition of echelon form says that all non-zero rows are above all zero rows, and the second condition says that each leading entry of a row is in a column to the right of the leading entry of the row above it. That means if in a row the first leading element, that means that is which is non-zero element, that comes first in first column, then definitely in the second row we should have a non-zero element, that means the leading entry in the second column only. And if in the second column we are having in the second row the leading element in second row second column, then in the next third column we should have only in third column only we should have leading element in third row. The first 2 elements in third row should definitely be 0. That is, we have other option too. In the third row the first 3 elements may also be zeros, but at least in the fourth column we can have the leading element in the third row, but it cannot be in the first column or in the second column in the third row. So that is the meaning of this condition 2. And in the third condition says that all entries in a column below a leading entry are zeros. If the first element, first column, first row element is the leading element in the first row, then all the elements below it should definitely be zeros. Then the third column, if that is so, then if all these 3 conditions are satisfied, we say that the matrix is in echelon form. So I have given you some examples yesterday. Now let us see some more examples. I have separately given examples yesterday for condition 1, condition 2 and condition 3. Now on the whole, let us see some matrices in echelon form. Each of these matrices will satisfy those 3 conditions. So first example I have given is capital A is equal to 1, 2, 3, 0, 5, 6, and the last row is all zeros. So here the first 2 rows are non-zero rows, and the last row, the third row, is the zero row. And we can see by the condition 1 the non-zero rows are above the zero row, and the condition 1 seems to be satisfied in the matrix A. And we can also see that in the first row the leading element is 1, and in the second row the leading element appears only in the right in the column right side to it. That means in the second column only we can see the leading element, which is 5 in the second row. And we can also see that all the elements below the leading elements in first column and in second column are zeros. So this is how this matrix is in echelon form. We can see those 3 conditions in other matrices mentioned here. let us see. The second matrix I have given is capital B is equal to 4, 2, 3, 4, 0, 5, 6, 7, 3 zeros and 8. There are no 0 rows at all, but that is not a condition. A 0 row should be present in the matrix is not the condition, but if at all 0 row exists, that should be below all the non-zero rows, or otherwise all non-zero rows should be present above the 0 row. Here there is no 0 row at all, but the second condition and third condition, how are they satisfied? Let us see. In the first row, number 4 is the leading element, and in the second row, first element is 0. That means that is not the leading element, and the second element, that is 5, is the leading element. So in the second row, the leading element is in the right column to the column present, which is to the column where the first leading element is present. So that is how the second condition is satisfied. And the third condition says that all the elements below the leading elements should be zeros. Here we can see in the first column, the elements below the leading element 4 are zeros, and in the second row 5 is the leading element, and in second column we can see the elements below 5 are zeros, and in the next column also we can see 3, 6, 0. But in the third row, what is the leading element? In the third row, the leading element is 8, and that column is anyhow to the right of the previous leading element presented column, that is second column. So that is how all the three conditions are satisfied in the matrix B for the conditions for echelon form. Hence the matrix B is in echelon form. Here I have given some more examples too. Capital C is the matrix 9, 2, 0, 4, 0, 5, 0, 16, 0, 0, 4, 3. Here also we can see that 9 is the leading element in first row, 5 is the leading element in second row, and 4 is the leading element in third row. And the second condition is also satisfied because every leading element is present in the column right side of the previous leading element existing column. So that is how, and we can also see that the elements below the leading elements are zeros. That is how the matrix C is also in echelon form. Even the matrix D 6, 0, 2, 3, 0, 4, 0, 0, 0, 2, 0 rows is also in echelon form. And the matrix E, where 0, 5, 3 zeros, 0, 0, 2, 0, 3, all zeros in third row, is also in echelon form. And the matrix F is equal to 0, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 0, 0, 4, 5, and all zeros in third row. This is also in echelon form. We should not misunderstand that the first element in first column and first row should definitely be a non-zero element. That is not necessary to be in echelon form. See here, F is also a matrix in echelon form for the reason that the first leading element is in the first row, third column. By the second condition, and the first condition says that all the non-zero rows are above the 0 row. So it is satisfied. We can see here the two non-zero rows are above the 0 row. And by the second condition, the leading element in each row should be present in the right side of the column to the previously existing leading element column. So here we can see 2 is the leading element in first row, which is present in third column, and in the second row 4 is the leading element which is to the right of the third column, which is in fourth column. So that is how the second condition is also satisfied. And the third condition says that each element below the leading element is 0 in that column. So elements below 2 are two zeros. So that condition is satisfied. Even the element below 4 is also 0. So that condition is also satisfied. And F, the matrix F is in echelon form. In the same way, we can see that capital G given like this here. It consists of two zero rows and two non-zero rows, and it will satisfy all the conditions, three conditions of echelon form. In capital H, the matrix of order 4 by 5, also we can see that it is also in echelon form, and the leading element in first row in H is 2, and the leading element in the second row is 3, which are present in the first leading element is in present in second column, and the second leading element is present in the fourth column, and that is also, and even in the third column, in the third row, there is a leading element, non-zero element, which is called leading element. So in the third row also there is a leading element 5, and which is present to the right of the column already leading element existing column. So this is how the echelon forms we can see here. So next, if some matrix is not in the echelon, a matrix is said to be in reduced echelon form or reduced row echelon form if it satisfies, along with those three conditions, if it satisfies two more conditions, then it is called, that matrix is said to be in reduced echelon form or reduced row echelon form. That is the reason I have given these conditions as fourth and fifth. In the echelon form definition, we have gone through three conditions, and if these two conditions are also added to those three conditions, then that matrix is said to be in row echelon form. Let us see what the extra conditions that are to be satisfied for row reduced echelon form. And the condition 4 says that the leading entry in each non-zero row is 1. And in the echelon form, we have seen that the leading entries, the leading elements are definitely non-zero elements, but they may be any number apart from 1 or 1 also, including 1 also. But here in reduced echelon form, the condition is the leading entry in each non-zero row is definitely 1, only 1, number 1. And in the fifth condition, it is stating that each leading entry 1 is the only non-zero entry in its column. And definitely by the echelon form condition, the elements below the leading entry are 0. So this condition is also saying the same thing, stating the same thing, that each leading entry 1 is the only non-zero entry in its column. So these are the examples for reduced echelon form. In this, A is not reduced echelon form. In fact, we have to change it a bit, because the presence of 4 is not satisfying, is contradicting the fifth condition, because each leading entry 1 is the only non-zero entry in its column. That is the fifth condition. So in the second column in the matrix A, 4 is the other non-zero element apart from the leading element 1. So the capital A is not an example of a row reduced echelon form, but B, C, D, E, F and G, all other examples satisfy the echelon forms. So let us move on to the next. There are 3 note points to be remembered regarding row reduced echelon form. What are they? Let us see. First note point says that any non-zero matrix may be row reduced by using elementary row operations. So any non-zero matrix may be row reduced by using elementary row operations. How we are changing the matrix into row reduced matrix means using elementary row operations. That means multiplying a row by some scalar and adding or subtracting from another row. That is, those things are called elementary row operations. And the second note point says that any non-zero matrix may be row reduced into more than one matrix in echelon form using different sequences of row operations. So using different row operations, one can change a non-zero matrix into different means more than one matrices in echelon forms. So a single matrix can be changed into different echelon form matrices using different sequences of row operations. And the third note point says that the reduced echelon form obtained from a matrix is always unique. There may be different matrices, echelon forms of matrices, but the row reduced echelon form is single, is only one for a given matrix. So now I am moving on to the fifth prerequisite for the topic linear algebra, and that consists of the terms pivot positions and pivot columns. This is very important. These are very important terms for the topic linear algebra. So what are these are new to you. Actually you didn't have come across these terms earlier. So let us see what they are. The pivot positions and pivot columns of a matrix play very important role in the solution of systems of linear equations. Definition goes like this. A pivot position is in a matrix A is the location in A that corresponds to a leading one in the reduced echelon form of A, where in which column that leading element 1 is present. That is in which column and in which row the position is, the location is known as pivot position in the matrix A. The column and row where the the leading element 1 is present, that is called pivot position. And what is that pivot column? Let us see. A pivot column is a column of the matrix A that contains a pivot position. If the pivot position is present in the first row, second column, then that column is called pivot column. So in a matrix there may be more than one pivot columns. Note point says that to identify pivot positions in pivot columns, that matrix is to be reduced into reduced echelon form. First of all, it should be that matrix is in the form of row reduced echelon form. Then only we can find out the pivot positions and pivot columns pertaining to that matrix. And the second note point says that the number of pivot positions of a matrix is less than or equal to the number of rows of that matrix. So the number of pivot positions is always less than or equal to the number of rows of that matrix. And the sixth prerequisite for this is for the topic linear algebra is systems of the knowledge regarding systems of linear equations. So the systems of linear equations is not a new term to you. You are come acrossing these systems of linear equations in the high school level. It's onwards. So still let us see what are the system of linear equations. and how we can change the given system of linear equations into matrices form, and what is the matrix equation. Let us go through all these things now. Consider a system of m linear equations in n unknowns, and unknowns I am taking them as x1, x2, so on xn. These are the variables, and the equations when do we say equation is a linear equation? If the variables have the power, or the power of variables is, if it is only 1 throughout the equation, then that equation is called linear equation. So a11 x1 plus a12 x2 plus so on a1n xn is equal to b1. A21 x1 plus a22 x2 plus so on a2n xn is equal to b2, and so on. The last equation is am1 x1 plus am2 x2 plus so on plus amn xn is equal to bm. So there are m number of equations consisting of n number of unknowns, and the whole system I am taking at all these equations together is called system of linear equations, and I am taking it as equation 1. Here aij elements, all the elements in the form aij, where I takes values from 1 to m and j takes values from 1 to n, are all those elements are all those coefficients of the variables in the form aij are real numbers, and b1, b2, so on bm on the right side, on the right hand sides of the equations are nothing but real constants. They are constants and real numbers, and taking all these coefficients in a matrix A, we can form a matrix A that taking only the coefficients, and that is called coefficient matrix capital A, and taking all the variables in a column, that is called variable matrix x bar, denoted by x bar here, and all the constants taking in a column, and that column matrix represented by b bar is column matrix. Then the system of equations in 1, the whole system of equations given in 1 can be written in a single equation, which is matrix equation, and that is ax bar is equal to b bar. This ax bar is equal to b bar represents the whole system of equations represented in the equation 1. And now we have to come across another term, augmented matrix. The whole matrix A together with the matrix b bar in the last column, if we take like that, that matrix is called augmented matrix for the system of equations in the equation 1. This system of equations is said to be consistent if it has a unique solution. Unique means only one solution. That means each of the variable has one unique value, only one value for each. Maybe they are different values, but each variable has only one answer, not more than one. If that is so, then the system is said to have unique solution, and the system may be consistent and have infinitely many solutions. Infinitely many solutions means at a time x1 may take infinite number of values. The variable x2 may also take infinite number of values, like that. Then we say that the system has infinite number of solutions. And there is one more choice left over, that is the system is said to be inconsistent if it has no solution at all. Hence, a linear system may have a unique solution or infinitely many solutions or no solution at all. In the first two cases, we call it the system is consistent, and in the last case where there is no solution at all, we say that the system is inconsistent. and the augmented matrix AB bar can be changed into reduced echelon form. Then we can say by a theorem whether the system is consistent or inconsistent. We will see that later. Before that, let us take an example. By taking example, let us define what are basic variables and free variables. Free variables is the term that we need in the later chapters of linear algebra. And here I am taking AB bar, the augmented matrix, as some matrix, and it is already in reduced echelon form. And as there are 4 columns in the matrix, the linear system consists of 3 variables, say x1, x2, x3. Here in the there are 3 variables, say x1, x2, x3. How can we say that if the augmented matrix has 4 columns, how can we say that there are 3 variables only? Because the last column denotes the constants, and the first 3 by 3 matrix denotes the equations with in 3 variables with these numbers as coefficients for the variables. So there are only 3 variables when the columns are 4 in an augmented matrix. So in the above matrix there are 2 pivot columns. We can see here, by seeing the matrix, we can see there are 2 pivot columns, the first column and the second column, as one is the leading element in first column and one is the leading element in the second row, and one is the only non-zero element present in that column. So these are the 2 pivot columns, and the pivot columns, because the leading element is 1 and the elements below it are 0. The 1 is the only non-zero element present in that column. They are first and second columns only in the above example. Therefore, these first and second column pertaining to the variables x1 and x2, and those variables x1 and x2 are called basic variables, and the remaining variable which is not pertaining to the pivot column is called the free variable. So here in this example, x3, which is corresponding to non-pivot column, is a free variable. So the condition for consistency and inconsistency of a system of linear equations can be known by a theorem stated below without proof. We don't need the proof. If the statement is enough for us. And what is that statement? How it goes? Let us see. A linear system of equations is consistent if and only if the rightmost column of the augmented matrix is not a pivot column. Further, the system has a unique solution when there are no free variables, and infinitely many solutions when there is at least one free variable. If there is no free variable at all, then the system is said to be consistent and has unique solution. And if there is at least one free variable, the at least one more means there may be more than one also. If there are one or more than one free variables, then the system is said to be consistent and has infinitely many solutions. And there are some note points to be gone through, and let us see what are they. From the above theorem, it can be concluded that a linear system has first point. Remember these points because we need them later in the following chapters for of the topic linear algebra. So remember these things and get into mind. I mean to say that get into mind these points. So note, first point of the note says that the system has the given linear system has unique solution if the number of pivot columns is equal to the number of variables. If the number of pivot columns and the number of variables are equal, then we can say that the system is consistent and has unique solution. And the system is consistent and has infinitely many solutions if the number of pivot columns is less than the number of variables. If the number of pivot columns is less than the number of variables, then we say that the system is consistent and has infinitely many solutions. And no solution, the system has no solution at all if the last column, the rightmost column, or the other word, the last column of the augmented matrix is a pivot column. If the last column is a pivot column, then the system is inconsistent and has no solution. Now let us move on to the last prerequisite for the topic linear algebra, and that includes the term invertible matrix theorem. And already we have come across what is the inverse of a matrix, the definition of inverse of a matrix. Now when do we say a matrix is invertible matrix? Let us see. If a square matrix A has an inverse, A inverse, then A is said to be invertible matrix. In the subject linear algebra, in all the chapters that follow, that we are going to learn, in all the chapters we come across this invertible matrix, and we can see that invertible matrix plays a key role in all the topics that we are going to learn. What is that invertible matrix? What does it state? Let us see. If A is a square matrix of order n, then the following statements are equivalent. That means 1 and the statement 1, the statements here are 8 statements, and each of them is equivalent to the all other statements. That means 1 is one and the same as 2, and 2 is it has the same meaning as 3, and 3 is just the same equivalent to the fourth statement, like so on. So what are those statements? Let us see. First one says that A is an invertible matrix, and when is all the other statements support this condition. What are the other statements? The determinant of A is not 0. So when the determinant of A is not 0, then we can say that A is an invertible matrix. And it is vice versa also. If A is an invertible matrix, then we can say the determinant of A is not 0. In the same way, the other statements are also equally same as the first two statements. There is a third one states that there is an n by n matrix B such that AB is equal to I is equal to BA. This is the definition of inverse matrix we have seen already. And fourth statement gives that A power T is also an invertible matrix. A power T, we call it as A transpose. So A transpose matrix is also an invertible matrix. And fifth one states that A is row equivalent to the n by n identity matrix. So A can be reduced to row matrix which is equivalent to an n by n identity matrix, nth order identity matrix. And sixth one states that A has n number of pivot positions. The maximum number of pivot positions in a square matrix of order n is n. And the seventh one states that the equation Ax bar is equal to 0 bar has only the trivial solution. Trivial solution means all the variables have the only one solution and all of them being the values 0. So, and the last one states that the equation Ax bar is equal to B bar has at least one solution of each B bar in Rn. If we go on changing B bar, taking from the n-dimensional space Rn, B bar is a vector in Rn actually. So if we go on changing the values in b bar, then we get different solutions for ax bar is equal to b bar. Each time a different solution when we go on change the values in b bar. So there ends the covering all the prerequisites for the topic linear algebra. Now this is the time we can jump into the real topic linear algebra. That tomorrow onwards we can do that. So go through all the 7 prerequisites covered in the 5 classes. Today we have finished all of them, and get the knowledge, and get if they are new to you, learn them, or if you already know, come across they, just recall them and get into mind all this information in your mind. Okay children.